someone who grew up in the United Kingdom, in England. I'll get closer to England. A place that's famous for fish and chips, warm beer, football where the ball actually hits your foot, the best kids drink you'll ever know, it's Vimto, amazing chocolate, and of course that awesome spy, James Bond 007, ding dong. And if a few of you have one more beer, you may start to see the likeness. Maybe not. So as growing up in the United Kingdom, I had grandmothers, grandparents, great-grandparents. And one of the things that they talked about was the time when they went through the Great Depression and through the Second World War. And within Britain, there was this spirit of bulldog, of Battle of Britain. In 1940, the RAF defeated the German Luftwaffe and stopped the invasion into the UK. With his resilience and grit and stiff upper lip, we didn't talk about it. People held on to it. And one of the things you may have heard on the news earlier this week when King Charles said, there was a phrase that came out, keep calm and carry on. And that's what they said, just keep calm and carry on. Keep it inside. So I used to spend times in my grandparents' kitchen listening to tales of what they'd done. And my paternal grandmother in particular had a hard time during that time. She lost a brother and husband within 2 days of D-Day. And she never really recovered from it, but she carried on. And so when we used to go around, we'd have a cup of tea. And I'm English, but I don't really like tea, but I had a cup of tea because it was at grandmother's. And then this supersized, I think she invented the word supersize, plate of chocolate biscuits. Now, biscuits in England aren't biscuits in America. They're actually scones, but that's a whole different conversation and talk. So we used to go there and listen to her. So we keep calm and we carry on. 20 years ago, I landed in Washington, D.C. and fell in love with the place. It's an amazing place. And also then in Virginia, where as a young child I'd seen the reruns of The Waltons on Blue Ridge Mountain, talking of peach picking. I wanted to go peach picking. Weird what you want to do as a kid. And then the other thing that I had to get used to was driving on the wrong side of the road, which actually turned out to be the right side of the road. And then the best thing since sliced bread was actually being able to turn right on red. That was amazing. We didn't do that in the UK. However, it took me 6 months to actually do it. And as you all know in the DMV, as drivers, people are so blessed with patience and understanding. So for 6 months, I had this cacophony of horns going on, going, it can't be me, I'm on a red light. Nobody's going to do that. And so it took me that time to then understand and look in the rearview mirror, all different sign languages people were throwing at me. You learn a lot sat at a red light. I then started to realize that nobody understood that wasn't peace. So I had a lot of fun sharing peace with people, and I'll tell you another time about that one. One of the other things I noticed about this area was the competitive spirit, this thing of wanting to do things, going out and getting there, living the dream. And I took on to that. I really enjoy that sense of what can be, of that, what can we do? And when I was in a growth area, I come over with a French company in the rail industry. I was working with Amtrak at the time, and I really enjoyed that area. But what I started to understand and ask the question, at what cost does success come at? So a couple of months later, and I started to discover there's words that people have no idea. I asked somebody, where are you going on your fortnight holiday, vacation? And they looked at me and went, what are you talking about? It's a computer game. I'm like, no, Fortnite. And I go, I have no idea what you're talking about, Phil. And fortnight is actually 2 weeks. And so when I said, are you going on a 2-week vacation? He went, I'm not going on a 2-week vacation. I don't even have a week vacation. Maybe I get a long weekend. So I started to understand that people worked hard, but did they actually take time to enjoy that? So we keep calm and we carried on. So after several years of working and being away, 80 nights a year, traveling around the US, seeing this amazing country, and also trying to make sure at home, when my daughter was born in 2011, so we've got 2 Brits and a Yank at home, that I wanted to spend time with her. And of course, you don't always do it. And my wife started taking her out to the mountains to pick peaches. And I never got that chance to do it. It was one of those things that I yearned to do. COVID came along, and for everyone, it was all different. We're in the same situation, but I spent 13 to 14 months at home. I'd never had that in nearly 15 years of being in the US. And that started to change. Something started to change inside. They said, I need to look at myself internally. But we got the go-ahead to start traveling again. I got a new role in August after merger and acquisition, and I carried on going. 2 months after that, on a morning walk, I went to do a stretch, and I pulled my left calf back, but it just wouldn't quite touch the back of my leg. So I rang the doctor when I got back, and he said, go to the emergency room. Maybe it's nothing, it's okay. And I thought, well, I'll do it later. So in the afternoon, I went into the emergency room, and within an hour and a half, I've been diagnosed with a deep vein thrombosis and bilateral pulmonary embolism. 1 in 3 don't survive blood clots in their young lungs. So in 24 hours, I walked in and out of hospital thinking, yeah, I'm all right, keep going. So I went home, started to ring family and friends, talked to work, and I talked to an Australian HR director, and I told him what I was doing. And then I started asking questions about work, what was happening. And he just stopped me and said, Phil, what the fuck are you doing? You're right, what the fuck am I doing? So I took 10 days. I decided to take that time, and during that time, I started to understand really what I got inside and what do I really need to do. So I had 4 months before I was able to travel again, and during that time, it started to dawn on me what I'd actually missed. I was undiagnosed, so I didn't know what to stop doing. On one day during the Christmas holidays, I noticed that my footprints were in the snow from the day before. And I realized at that time that 1 step at a time and do it consistently, and I'll get through this. So February came, and I went straight back into work mode. Kept on working through, and kept calm, and just carried on. I also started working with a coach, an amazing lady out of Toronto, starting to get queer about that inner work. What do I really want to do in life? What's going to happen? And so in 2023, at the beginning of that year, I started on an unbelievable travel journey. I did 55 flights, 78 nights in 5 months. I was exhausted. Went away on vacation to the West Coast, and it was completely trashed, even mocked by work. It was a disaster. Got home, and after July 4th, I was back working again. And at the end of that day, after 12 hours being on the phone, constantly moving around, I was sat on the back deck, and this dark thought entered my mind. And it said calmly, with no drama, family will be all right. You've got life assurance. They don't need you anymore. And I let that land, and it was a scary place. Because all of a sudden, your body was saying, you need to stop. So I let it sit with me. This only went through in a few seconds, but I let it sit. I got up and said, that's it. I need to do something different. So I went to bed, went out for my walk in the morning, and rang up my manager in the morning and said, I need to stop. I need to withdraw myself from this environment. And people talk about having a weight lifted off your shoulders. It lifted off my shoulders. It was unbelievable. It was a surreal experience. So I took the time off, sought medical help. I was starting to get pain in my carotid artery. It was nothing to do with the artery itself in function. It was a due to the stress. And the reason for Sia and Unstoppable was 4 days afterwards, after taking time out, I sat in a mall and this record came on. And I started doing this crazy karaoke. I'm glad no one was around that knew me. And then the release came. I was sobbing my eyes out, but it felt better because I was able to let go and start to understand what I was doing. Later that year, we decided to part companies with business that I've been with for nearly 20 years. And so I had a choice to make. Do I continue going back into corporate life, as people were telling me to? Keep going. Everyone wants to keep going, just ignore what your body's saying. Or do I take the path that's less traveled? I took the path that was less traveled. I wanted to give myself time to spend time with my family. I'd nearly lost my life 2 years ago, so I chose that path. And people say when one door closes, another one opens, but never really talk about the whole way in between, the transition. It can be a dark and scary place. It can be a place of enlightenment. So I chose to sit in that path and go and spend time with family and friends and really start to understand, what do I want? I've been working non-stop since 16. In high school in the UK, you leave at 16. I wasn't kicked out, don't worry. So what I've been doing and starting to understand is, what do I want to do? And so I've started going into some consultancy. I've also started to look at the mental health, trauma and wellness, met some amazing people in that space, and I'm now adding that into coaching. One of the other things I've started to do is to look at poetry and about how we use words to express what's inside of us. And during that time and that inspiration, I was able to write a poem myself. And it's about going peach picking. So after all those time of yearning as a young child in the UK to go peach picking in the Blue Ridge Mountains, my daughter being taken to go and I wasn't able to, I was finally able to do it. So for the last 3 years, I've been peach picking. And what I'd like to do is just to share with you that poem tonight. Creating the space to go with grace, curious to go to where the peaches grow, to hold her hand, to traverse the land, those hot summer days with early morning breeze, sweet taste of peach, of air, of life. Thank you.